There's a sound that comes from deep within the Congolese jungle. Not the roar of a lion or the screech of a monkey, but a low, rasping scritch against bark, like chitin on wood. The locals say it's the J'ba Fofi, the giant spider. The name alone is enough to chill the blood. But is it just a story passed around fires, or something more? The legend of the J'ba Fofi, pronounced J'ba Fofi, has been told in parts of Gabon and the Congo Basin for generations, described as having a leg span of up to 5 feet, with thick, hairy limbs and a body the size of a puppy. It's no ordinary spider. And what's most disturbing is that these stories don't come from ancient folklore alone. They come from recent memory. In 1938, a British missionary couple traveling through a remote part of the Congo claimed to have encountered what they first mistook for a monkey crossing the trail. As they approached, the creature turned, revealing its true form, a massive spider, brown and tarantula-like, with red markings on its back. The husband reportedly tried to shoot at it, but it vanished into the underbrush before he could raise his rifle. Decades later, stories began resurfacing, often identical in detail. Hunters going quiet when the canopy above begins to shake. Trails lined with large, evenly spaced webbing across human paths. Children gone missing near riverbanks, their sandals discovered next to broken reeds and strange tracks in the mud. A park ranger in Cameroon once described finding a large burrow with silk, thicker than fishing line, empty, but still vibrating with recent activity. And then there are the sightings, always in the periphery, always fleeting, a shimmer of brown in the shadows, a cluster of eyes glinting in the moonlight. Some scientists dismiss the idea outright, claiming that arachnids of such scale couldn't support their own weight due to the limitations of oxygen diffusion in their exoskeletons. But skeptics forget, we've been wrong before. The fossil record has proven the existence of prehistoric spiders nearly 2 feet wide, like Megarachne cervinae, and that was in a world far less rich in biomass than the modern Congo Basin. The deeper you go, the less certainty you have. In many parts of the jungle, no systematic biological surveys have ever been conducted. It's a void, thick with vines, whispers, and a possibility. Locals tell of warning signs, hollowed-out nests in the canopy, trees stripped of bark in long horizontal gashes, a humming, like a bass note that seems to vibrate the inside of your skull. That's when you leave, they say. You don't look back. You don't speak, because if you do, it might hear you. By the late 1980s, the J'ba Fofi had become more than a tale told around fires. Reports were filtering in through anthropologists, missionaries, and later even skeptical biologists. These weren't just sightings. They were accounts filled with fear and unsettling detail. In a remote village near the Likwala swamp basin, an elderly woman named Maluba told her story to a Belgian anthropologist in 1987. She had been a child when her younger brother disappeared while chasing a frog into the underbrush. Moments later, she heard a scream. When the villagers searched, they found a patch of trampled ferns, a torn shirt, and a thick web stretched between 2 trees, taut and white, like rope made of milk. She had never spoken of it again until the anthropologist brought photos of spiders for local naming. When he showed an image of a tarantula, her face darkened. "J'ba Fofi," she whispered, "but too small." In that same region, Two missionaries recounted being delayed on a forest trail in 2001 when what they first took for a massive palm frond moved. It wasn't a frond. It had legs, at least 6 of them visible, and was slowly retracting into the foliage. They didn't wait to count more. Other testimonies emerged, often fragmented, sometimes confused by local superstition, but consistent in one haunting way. The descriptions always spoke of a spider larger than a dog, sometimes larger than a small car. Some said it stood a meter tall. Others that its legs could span 2. Some claimed it could leap. Western scientists scoffed, but a few herpetologists, notably those studying under canopy conditions, began collecting unusual data. Strange webbing high in the branches, with tensile strength unlike any known silk. Forest floor imprints, shaped like many-legged splay marks, near kill sites, and birds, even monkeys, caught in traps no one set. One such scientist, Dr. Howard Kamba, published a now-forgotten field note in 1993. After working 3 seasons in the Congolese interior, he documented the recurring presence of unclassified web strands with biopolymer thickness exceeding standard orb weaver ranges by nearly 400%. But funding dried up. Kamba vanished from academia. Some say he went back, alone, and though there are no photos, no specimens, something still weaves in those trees, because people are still disappearing, and the web doesn't lie. In 2003, a research team led by Congolese ecologist Jean-Marc Ilunga was mapping amphibian populations along the southern banks of the Motaba River. Their goal was humble: track frog calls, water clarity, and insect diversity. But on the 12th day, just after a brief rain, they found something else. Along a stretch of soft jungle trail, the mud had recorded movement, not human, not ape. 8 impressions, long, deep, and symmetrically spaced, crossed the trail in an arc. Each print measured over 18 inches wide. The team's guide, a local Bantu hunter named Tembo, froze, his machete lowered. "Fofi," he muttered. The scientists, unfamiliar with the term, dismissed it as perhaps a pangolin or distorted gorilla sign. But Tembo refused to proceed. That night, he refused to sleep on the ground. The next morning, he left without a word. Ilunga, to his credit, documented the tracks. He took plaster cast photographs, but the prints were too unusual to categorize. When he attempted to submit them to a European wildlife journal, the editor responded politely, "Miscalibration of scale or misidentification is likely." So the story vanished, but not the fear. In a different part of the Congo in 2011, 2 UN workers reported hearing an unnatural chittering above their tent at night near the Epalou River. One of them described the noise as dry leaves crackling, but faster and with intent. The next morning, their mosquito netting had been shredded from above. Nothing was missing. Nothing was taken. But both refused to return to that posting the following season. More recently, in 2019, a viral video circulated briefly on a local Congolese social network. It showed grainy footage, handheld, jittery, of a dark shape moving high through jungle vines. At one point, what appears to be a spindly limb taps a tree trunk before vanishing into the canopy. The clip was deleted days later. No source could be verified. Still, something moves where it shouldn't. Something leaves no body, no bones, only warnings, and the silence that follows them. It was the rainy season of 2021 when Belgian wildlife photographer Leon Verveek joined a biodiversity survey expedition near the Eerily forest's southeastern border. While most of the team focused on bird species and rare orchids, Leon was there chasing rumors. Rumors, whispered by local trackers, of Ndekele, or the Thin One. One humid afternoon, Leon broke off from the group, following the sound of running water into a narrow ravine. The canopy above twisted tightly, letting in only dappled light. As he crouched to photograph a cluster of fungi on a log, he heard it, a sudden rustle, not from the underbrush, but above. He stood slowly. Behind the thick vines overhead, a shape shifted. The moment lasted less than 5 seconds, but Leon swears it had 8 limbs, black and jointed. One limb descended briefly, brushing a vine aside, revealing an eye. Large, dark, and unblinking. Then it was gone. He stumbled backwards, fell into the stream, and dropped his camera. When he recovered it, the lens was cracked and the memory card unreadable. Only one image partially survived, a blurry smear of motion, shadow, on green. Leon didn't speak of it for months. When he did, most laughed or nodded politely. But the local guide, an older woman named Mama Jenga, only asked, "Did it speak?" He didn't understand. She continued, "Some say the Ndekele taps the trees when it watches. That's how you know." Leon had heard tapping just before the rustle. He left Congo a week early. He has not returned. The surviving image, corrupted, indistinct, was quietly circulated among cryptid forums. Some say it's a hoax. Others call it the closest thing to proof. Most just call it disturbing, and deep in the ravine, the tapping continues. In the years following Leon Verveek's account, whispers of the Ndekele grew louder. More expeditions quietly diverted their routes into the shaded folds of the Eerily Basin. Some returned empty-handed. Others didn't return at all. Reports emerged of eerily similar encounters. A shadow high in the canopy, patterns of rhythmic tapping, and the fleeting glimpse of something impossibly large with too many limbs. None conclusive, always just out of reach. Biologists offered rational explanations. Misidentified primates, oversized arachnids, distorted by fear and adrenaline, or natural tree movement amplified by wind. But a few voices in the scientific fringe dared to suggest otherwise. Could a relic species have survived? A descendant of the ancient megarachnid genus, or something altogether unknown? Locals were more certain. The forest knows, they'd say, and it keeps secrets. One theory stood out. The Ndekele wasn't always a spider. Some folklorists argued it may be a spirit, taking the shape of what you most fear, or what best fits the land's silence. In this view, the creature wasn't biological, but something older, stranger, a watcher. Whatever the truth, the pattern is always the same. A remote region, a sudden tapping, a presence overhead, and then nothing but silence and stories. The forest offers no answers, only shadows. In the dense jungle where paths are swallowed by root and vine. Some questions are never meant to be answered, only asked. What if the Ndekele was real, not as a species to be catalogued, but as a phenomenon to be understood. What if it represents a category of creature that resists classification, not because it hides, but because we're not looking the right way? Some researchers have started comparing reports of the Ndekele with global patterns, giant spider-like creatures seen in the Amazon, Papua New Guinea, and even old mining records from Central Asia. Could this be part of a broader mystery? Others return to folklore. In many cultures, spiders are seen not as beasts, but as weavers of fate, knowledge, or memory. Could the Ndekele be an echo of that archetype, appearing only when the forest chooses to reveal it? And then there are the practical questions. Why are there no clear photos? Why are witnesses often isolated or already discredited? Why do the stories follow the same emotional arc? Terror, awe, silence. Some say it's all mass hallucination, born of heat, isolation, and fear. Others say it's real, but it chooses not to be known. Whatever the case, the Ndekele lingers. In stories, in half-whispered warnings, and in the space between certainty and wonder. Maybe that's where it belongs. Maybe that's what makes it so frightening.